Airline hijackings are, thankfully, rare occurrences. The thought of someone seizing control of an aircraft is chilling. Even rarer is a pilot hijacking their own aircraft. These cases challenge our understanding of aviation safety. EgyptAir Flight 990 is a stark reminder of this possibility. On October 31st, 1999, this flight ended abruptly in the Atlantic Ocean. Investigators uncovered a chilling narrative of deliberate action by the first officer. The evidence pointed towards a premeditated act. The incident raised profound questions about pilot screening and mental health protocols. EgyptAir Flight 990 was a regularly scheduled flight, carrying passengers from various walks of life on a transatlantic journey. The Boeing 767, a workhorse of modern aviation, was considered a reliable and safe aircraft. The cockpit crew consisted of seasoned pilots, each with thousands of flight hours under their belts. Captain Ahmed El-Habashi, a veteran pilot with over 14,000 flight hours, was responsible for the overall command of the flight. Seated beside him was First Officer Gameel Al-Batouti, a pilot with considerable experience himself, logging over 5,000 flight hours. The flight took off from JFK Airport in the late evening, beginning its long journey over the Atlantic. The initial hours of the flight were uneventful, with the aircraft maintaining a steady course and altitude. Air traffic control reported no irregularities, and communication between the cockpit and ground control was routine. Passengers settled into their seats, unaware that their transatlantic journey would soon transform into a nightmare. About 30 minutes into the flight, as EgyptAir 990 cruised at 33,000 feet, a series of unusual events unfolded in the cockpit. Captain El-Habashi left the cockpit to take a short break, leaving Al-Batouti alone at the controls. What followed was a chilling sequence of actions that deviated sharply from standard flight procedures.
I rely on God.
Moments later, Al-Batouti disengaged the autopilot and put the aircraft into a rapid descent. The Boeing 767 began to plunge towards the ocean at an alarming rate. Alerted by the blaring alarms, Captain El-Habashi rushed back into the cockpit to find the aircraft in a steep dive. He was met with a scene of chaos and confusion. The aircraft was shaking violently, the engine noise deafening as the 767 plummeted towards the ocean.
What is happening? We need to pull up.
El-Habashi immediately recognized the severity of the situation. He struggled to understand why the aircraft was in such a rapid descent. His first instinct was to regain control, to pull the aircraft out of its deadly dive and avert disaster. He fought against the forces pulling the plane downwards, trying desperately to right the aircraft.
No, I rely on God.
Al-Batouti, however, was still at the controls, and his actions suggested he was actively resisting El-Habashi's attempts to recover the aircraft. The cockpit voice recorder captured a terrifying struggle between the two pilots, their voices strained with exertion and panic. El-Habashi's commands were met with resistance, his pleas for Al-Batouti to relinquish control ignored. The struggle for control continued as the aircraft descended rapidly, the ocean looming ever closer. Despite Captain El-Habashi's desperate attempts to regain control, the aircraft continued its fatal descent.
The struggle in the cockpit continued, but the outcome was inevitable.
The Boeing 767, pushed beyond its limits, began to break apart under the immense stress. The sound of metal groaning and tearing filled the air as the aircraft disintegrated, sending debris raining down into the dark ocean below.
The final moments of EgyptAir Flight 990 were a chaotic and terrifying spectacle, a testament to the immense forces unleashed when a large aircraft is pushed beyond its structural limits.
The impact with the Atlantic Ocean was catastrophic. The aircraft, traveling at a high rate of speed, shattered upon impact, killing all 217 souls on board instantly. The debris field, spread out over a wide area of the ocean, painted a grim picture of the violence of the crash.
The tragedy sent shockwaves across the world as news outlets broadcast the devastating news. The loss of life, the mystery surrounding the crash, and the chilling possibility of a pilot suicide gripped the world's attention.
The wreckage was spread over a wide area of the ocean floor, making recovery efforts difficult and time-consuming. The investigation into the crash of EgyptAir Flight 990 was complex and challenging.
The National Transportation Safety Board led the inquiry, with assistance from Egyptian authorities and Boeing.
The investigation focused on the aircraft's mechanical systems, the pilot's actions, and potential external factors.
The black boxes provided crucial insights into the final moments of the flight. The NTSB meticulously analyzed evidence, including the flight data recorder and the cockpit voice recorder.
The flight data recorder revealed the aircraft's altitude, speed, heading, and other critical parameters.
The cockpit voice recorder provided a chilling audio recording of the conversations and sounds in the cockpit.
Section 7. A nation divided. Egypt's rejection of the NTSB findings. As the NTSB investigation progressed, a clear narrative began to emerge, pointing towards deliberate action by First Officer Al-Batouti. The evidence, particularly the CVR recordings and the lack of any mechanical failure, strongly suggested that Al-Batouti intentionally put the aircraft into a dive. The NTSB's findings, however, were met with resistance and denial from Egyptian authorities.
Egypt, reluctant to accept the possibility of one of our pilots committing such an act, offered alternative explanations for the crash. Our investigators proposed a scenario involving a malfunction of the aircraft's elevator control system, suggesting a mechanical failure rather than human action.
This theory, however, was not supported by the evidence gathered by the NTSB. The NTSB, standing firm by its findings, maintained that the evidence overwhelmingly pointed towards a deliberate act by Al-Batouti. This difference in opinion created a rift between the two investigative bodies, highlighting the cultural and political sensitivities surrounding aviation accidents. Section 8. The weight of evidence. Al-Batouti's troubling past. Despite Egypt's official stance, the NTSB's investigation continued to uncover troubling information about Al-Batouti's past. Interviews with colleagues and acquaintances revealed a pattern of concerning behavior in the months leading up to the crash. Some reports suggested that Al-Batouti had been reprimanded for inappropriate conduct towards female guests at a hotel used by EgyptAir crews. There were also allegations of sexual misconduct, casting a dark shadow over his professional and personal life. While these allegations, if true, did not directly explain his actions on that fateful night, they painted a picture of a man grappling with personal demons. The NTSB, while acknowledging the limitations of speculating on Al-Batouti's state of mind, concluded that the evidence strongly suggested a deliberate act, likely motivated by personal reasons. The tragedy of EgyptAir Flight 990, therefore, became a stark reminder of the importance of understanding the human factor in aviation safety. Section 9. Strengthening the system. Aviation security in the aftermath. The crash of EgyptAir Flight 990 sent shockwaves through the aviation industry, prompting a reassessment of security protocols and pilot screening procedures. The possibility of a pilot intentionally crashing an aircraft, once considered almost unthinkable, became a chilling reality. Airlines and aviation authorities worldwide implemented new measures to address this potential threat. Security protocols were enhanced, with a greater emphasis on background checks for pilots and crew members. The incident highlighted the importance of psychological evaluations for pilots, not just during initial training, but also throughout their careers. The goal was to identify individuals who might pose a risk to themselves or others, ensuring that pilots are mentally fit to handle the immense responsibility of flying an aircraft. Section 10. The human factor pilot mental health takes center stage. The tragedy of EgyptAir Flight 990 served as a stark reminder that even in the highly controlled and technologically advanced world of aviation, the human factor remains a critical element. The incident brought to light the importance of addressing mental health issues within the aviation industry. Pilots, like anyone else, face personal challenges and stresses that can impact their well-being. The stigma surrounding mental health issues, particularly in professions that demand a high level of performance and stability, often prevents individuals from seeking help. In the wake of the crash, Airlines and aviation authorities implemented programs to provide pilots with better access to mental health resources, confidential counseling, and support systems. The goal was to create an environment where pilots feel comfortable seeking help without fear of jeopardizing their careers. The tragedy of EgyptAir Flight 990, while a devastating loss of life, forced the aviation industry to confront a difficult truth. The human behind the controls is as critical to safety as the aircraft itself.